Affiong. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all very much for joining today's session. Thank you for always being here in this room to learn as much as you can. It's always great to have you all here. Thank you once again. My name is Eric Shobukola Oluwafumilayo, Business Support Officer here at LSETF. And as you all know, LSETF is your partner in your progress, your business. We bring to you sessions such as these, masterclasses, webinar sessions, physical, virtual like this one that we're having today, and so many learning opportunities for you business owners so that you can use all of this information, leverage on them, and as a result of this, you can scale your businesses. Today, we are having with us a very important person. I mean, you know, those kind of people that have been there, done it, and she's an expert in that field. And on today's topic, she will be doing justice to it. And the topic today is essential insights for MSMEs on manufacturing, selling, and importing regulated products. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about the key considerations for your business. What are those things you need to consider when you are into the manufacturing business? What are those things that you need to know? What are those things you need to leverage on? What are those lessons you need to learn? And here today we have Affiong Williams. She will be doing justice to this very topic for us. And trust me when I say that Affiong is actually an expert. Believe me, she is. Affiong is actually into business herself. She is an entrepreneur, and she is the CEO of ReelFruit. I don't know if we all have heard about ReelFruit. Affiong is the CEO of ReelFruit, and she has really done a lot of things in terms of business. So she understands the business space, especially the space in manufacturing and production. Yeah, she is from Cross River State, and she is married, and she also graduated reading physiology and psychology from the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. And she also had experience in the private sector where she worked with Endeavor in South Africa within 2008 to 2012. And then she rose to positions like the manager there before she returned to Nigeria. And when she returned to Nigeria, she started a business, and the business in agribusiness, and she owns the ReelFruit. So you see, when I say that we actually have with us today a very good expert that can actually put us through on what we need to know, the essential things that we need to know and that we need to leverage on in our manufacturing, production, selling, and business. Yeah. So before we go into the masterclass proper and give the floor to Affiong, I'd really want us to keep the chat box buzzing. I see that some of us here had already started putting up. Daniel, good morning. Thank you very much. DK, good morning. Kashmir, good morning. Thank you very much for joining the session. And good morning to Ahmed. Ahmed Owolabi, I have to greet you specially because you're always on all of our sessions. Thank you very much for always willing to learn. And good morning to you all. I want you to please put what you do, the kind of business you do, and where you're joining us from in the chat box so we can network that way. You never can tell there's somebody here that might just be needing your services. So it's an opportunity for you to also, you know, leverage on this to put yourself out here. Thank you very much. Daniel is putting his services out here. You can please go through the chat box and see what he does. So quickly, we have about 1 to 2 minutes to do that. I want you to just put your name, where you're joining us from, and what kind of business you're into in the chat box. Thank you very much. So while you're at that, I would quickly tell us about LSETF. We all know what we do here at LSETF, but I'll just touch on it again. LSETF was created in 2016 with the mandate to enable job creation. And so far, so good. We've really been doing a good work in that space. We've been supporting businesses with access to finance, access to grants, loan, and also what we do here with supporting your businesses with information, knowledge, trainings, and developmental opportunities that can help you to scale your businesses. We also have so many other wonderful programs for the Lagos residents, such as employability program for the young ones. We also have Lagos Innovate for those in the tech space. And then we also have in place so many other opportunities. You can check out the opportunities that you can leverage on as a Lagos resident from LSETF on www.lsetf.ng. Please feel free to check out the kind of programs you can leverage on. Be you a student that is looking for something to keep you busy, you want to learn a skill, and you want to acquire a skill, you want to get a job, you can leverage on some of our employability program. And then as a business owner, of course, you can leverage on our loan opportunity, and you can also leverage on our business support programs as well as our grant program to scale your businesses. And as a tech person, please feel free to check out what you can get as an offer from our Lagos Innovate space. Yeah, so thank you all once again. I see the chat box buzzing. I see that you all have been doing your networking. But right now, we would be giving the floor to Affiong Williams, where she would be sharing insight, great insight, I must say, on this our topic today, the essentials of manufacturing, producing, selling, and then what you need to know. Hi, Affiong. Nice to see your beautiful face. Welcome. Thank you very much for doing this for us at LSETF. We're really, really happy to have you. Please welcome Affiong on the chat box so that she can have the floor, and then you can dig in and gain as much as you can from what she has to share with us today. Welcome her in the chat box, please. I want to see your hands and I want to see your welcome in for Affiong. Thank you, Affiong. You have the floor, please. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for that kind introduction. My name is Affiong Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of ReelFruit. I've been running the company for 11 years, and ReelFruit, as some of you may know, is the largest dried fruit processing, manufacturing, and retailing company based in Nigeria. We created the market for dried fruit starting out about 10 years ago, where the snack subsector did not exist. So we built the demand for our products, and currently we are in over 1,000 stores in 20 states in Nigeria, and we also sell our products internationally. My company also employs about 180 people. And we are scaling up to expand our manufacturing capacity to serve bigger markets. So this topic is very, very, dear to me, because as a manufacturer for about 11 years now, I've also dealt, at different levels, from the small micro scale importing inputs to now, manufacturing locally and scaling up. So I hope to share insights that, are valuable to people. I really try to ensure that when I have these kinds of sessions and discussions with people, I'm really giving relevant information. So I would appreciate if some of you would obviously share your questions, but also just maybe talk a bit or share a bit about your companies, what you do, what stage you are in the company, so that I can leverage what experience I have to be valuable. I will also like to thank LSETF for this opportunity. I'm an LSETF beneficiary myself, having taken advantage of several products and offerings from them, especially the very, very helpful loan program that they offer at a very good interest rate, and some more other support that they've given us in terms of like laptops for our companies and learning opportunities and the like. So I'm grateful for the great work LSETF does, and I hope that most of the people in the discussion today have been beneficiaries of LSETF. If so, I would encourage all of you to look at what opportunities may be suitable to you. So today's topic is obviously a very broad one. I was looking again at the title, Essential Insights for MSMEs on Manufacturing, Selling and Importing regulated products and considerations for your business. So this topic is really kind of, I guess, assuming that a lot of people who are in the room today are importing products. That's kind of what the topic, is focused on. And I will touch a bit on that because we did used to import products in the beginning to sell. But also if the case is that some of you are also more geared at local manufacturing, please say so in the chat, and I will also relate to some of the information I have on that based on my experience. I would also not keep my talk too long because I believe also asking question and answer is probably the best way to also give direct feedback to people. And, if there are any questions or guided questions from LSETF's end that they would like me to touch on, I'll also give opportunity for that. So if we jump straight to the question or the topic of the day, I guess for me, I always start my advice to SMEs with knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is the most important, I would say the most important and underrated resource a business can have to grow. Now, obviously, some people will say it's money, which is true. Money is very important, but being able to apply money, especially because money is a very scarce resource, apply money to drive growth of your business, you need a lot of knowledge and information. And what do I mean by that? I mean that I find that a lot of SMEs, MSMEs, when they jump into business, they don't first take stock of what has been done in the business they're going into, where have others grown, where have others stumbled, and what the real opportunity is. I think a lot of people, see some opportunity, but they don't actually go into really digging into the market behind that opportunity. What are the challenges that would be come from trying to pursue that opportunity? What are the stumbling blocks, and what have others done? So research and information is absolutely the number one criteria, the number one step that any MSME must take before you are thinking of formalizing and growing into a business. And the pushback I get a lot is that, Nigerians don't like to give information. We can't find information. There's no data, etc. But I disagree, and I'm going to, push back on people who say that, because one, I started a business where there was actually no data because this business did not exist before, but I was able to use certain information and look for certain information that pointed me into the right direction, that, my business could work, or these were the areas where I could compete, or these were the areas where I couldn't compete. So you must find data to support or back up whatever claim you say you are going to, you expect, or whatever assumption you have about your business. And that can come from a number of ways. If you're manufacturing products that, sell in stores, walking into the stores, looking at all the competitors on the shelf, looking at how much they're pricing will give you a good idea of what the competitive landscape is. Asking the store owners, how are these things selling, will give you a sense of what the market is. Even asking some of the companies directly, questions or networking with them would give you some more information about how that business or that environment operates. So you don't want to walk into a business and be learning stuff or making mistakes others have made. That is a waste of your time and of scarce money. What you want to first do is look for who has done this, even those who have not been successful, and try to understand what went wrong so you don't repeat those mistakes. So information gathering is very important. It it is laborious, it is long, it is sometimes even expensive in terms of your time. Sometimes you have to travel, but it saves you so much money, because there is nothing worse than going to repeat a mistake that someone has made before, buying machinery that has been proven not to work as well or not as efficient, and you've lost money on, you know, the machinery you've bought, on the packaging that you did wrong or something of that nature. So questions that must be answered around your business when you're starting, around the viability, the market opportunity, even down to things like packaging, seasonality, how it sells, when it sells well, when it doesn't sell well. All those things are within your, they're your duty to go and understand before you jump into, expending money into growing this business or this product without knowing exactly how it's going to do into the market. Where possible, I would try to use as many examples from my business to exemplify the point. But, I have several examples where going around and getting research has saved me a lot of time and money. And I have several examples where I did not get research, I did not adequately seek market information, and I've lost a lot of money or I've made a lot of mistakes, right? So I think that this is the first step every business must have. There must be questions that you can answer. Things like what is your cost of production of the product you want to get. What you find is a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I just need to bring in the machines and then I know what to do, or I'll buy the raw material, or they package all the costs together. It's going to cost me 1 million to produce 10 cartons and I'll sell it for 4 million. Those general things, they're not good enough when you want to actually get into your business, start and scale. Because if you omit an important cost, or you cannot account for changes in, the business, or you don't even understand how or why people are selling things at the price they are selling, you fall into the temptation of then making too many assumptions that will render your business model untenable and unviable. I've seen this happen time and time and time again, especially in the manufacturing industry, because what a lot of us entrepreneurs do, and I'm guilty myself, when we want to launch a product, we go online and see all these machines, especially from China. They're expensive, but some are cheap, and they claim to do all these things for you. Oh, this will automate this, automate that. You'll be able to produce X tons per hour. And without further research, you don't even know whether half those machines work well, whether there's not something else that will be limiting your production and the like. So you've invested money in some machines, then you realize that you've omitted to buy one key machine and you've run out of money, things of that nature. So this happens so many times where we assume that we can just on our own kind of understand the end-to-end production or the end-to-end assumptions of our business model and then take decisions without actually validating those decisions with research. So I implore everybody, even if you're in a business now and you've started, you need to compare what you're doing against others. You need to benchmark what you're doing. You need to see how others are able to maybe charge more, charge less, how they're producing cheaper, how they're producing less, and or how they're doing more with less, etc., to be more competitive, so that you actually are armed with the information that makes you take the right decision. This information is by no means easy to get, but business is not easy. So one thing about me as well, I'm not going to glamorize, the difficulty of some of these things I'm saying. I've been in business for 11 years. So, I'm also one who has been through it all. So I am not going to also downplay how difficult it is, but I'm also going to say that is the nature of doing a business. If you want your business to be successful, you have to take a lot of guesswork out of it. You have to mitigate your risk. You have to understand the nature of what you're going into. And you have to do a lot of research. Another key example why this is important is that most of us start our businesses at home. I started my business in an apartment. What you tend to do is when you start small, you kind of overlook some of the costs. So right now, you are the key promoter of the business. Maybe you don't even have full-time employees. You're using your house to produce on the side, so you're not accounting for the cost of rent, your own diesel or your own gas cooker or your own backyard or whatever is what you're using to produce these products and you're selling. So the price seems like you can you can sell at a low price at the moment. But once you scale up or want to formalize, all these costs that you have not added into play or factored in start to come in, and then you realize that you've not thought through your entire cost structure, and you are now not able to sell at a particular price, or the cost of scaling up, because you did not take that into consideration, becomes very difficult for you to compete against bigger guys who are more efficient, who have more scale, etc. So that's why it's important to, and I'm not going to emphasize this need for you to do a lot of research. Ways you can do research, like I mentioned, I started with starting from the market, going to understand how these things are selling, who is selling the best, why they're selling the best, trying to understand what your competitors are doing in terms of their production, networking. Sometimes what I do is, of course, if you cannot find like you cannot, maybe a manufacturer in Nigeria is not going to give you that information because, you're competing with them directly. So generally people are a bit guarded about, wanting to share what machines they're using. You can find a similar company in another country like Ghana, or a next door neighbor, or let's say you're in Lagos doing maybe smoked fish or beauty products. You can find a company in another state that is not competing with you directly to understand what they're doing, just to give you some idea or validate. You cannot walk blind. You cannot say because you don't know or nobody told you. You can find companies that maybe are a bit bigger than you, like maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years bigger than you, so they don't feel like you're in direct competition, and they may give you information or guide you as you're starting. So there are ways to get this information, but it's absolutely important. Like I said, a key advantage with knowledge is most times the mistakes it helps you avoid. It's not even sometimes what you do with the knowledge, is what you don't do with the knowledge. When you don't buy a bad machine, when you don't go and order all this raw material that your machines cannot take because you learned from somebody else a better way to do it, etc. Those things save you money. They don't look like cash up front, but if you spend money on the wrong thing, that's money you could have spent on the right thing. If you go into one business line that has no market, you could have invested in a business line that does have an open market, right? So for me, knowledge is key, and I'm happy to take some more questions about that. But in my business, I can tell you that if I want to buy a new machine, I will reach out to 4 or 5 different manufacturers in 2 or 3 different countries to know whether that's the right machine to buy, where they bought from, which vendor they used. If I want to buy new packaging, I do a lot of research. If I want to launch a new product into the market, if that product is not in Nigeria, I go to countries where it's selling to understand how well it's selling, what makes people buy it. I try as much as possible to use information, even if it's not directly related to Nigeria, to guide how I'm going to move so that I don't make mistakes. Because, like I said, mistakes are very costly. And with manufacturing, once you put money down, you can't repurpose it. Once you buy a machine that does not work, you cannot use that machine to do something else. And it's very hard to sell off the machine. So here, risk mitigation around how to approach your business from knowledge is very, very, very important. So I spend a lot of time on that because it's very important. Of course, there are also other considerations that we must take into account. I will not talk too much on legal requirements because that's very normal and common. If you're manufacturing, whichever agencies are guiding you, NAFDAC and the like, you need to at least to some state understand what is required of you. I'm not one to believe that you must go to all the agencies and comply with all of them, because that, of course, that comes as you scale. It may sound like you have to apply or comply with everything at one point, but it's not the case. I think that, you can comply with the key agencies, and as you scale and as you grow and become more formalized, you look at how best to kind of comply with others. But you must actually have some sort of legal requirements. For instance, if you are in business, and you are selling to stores, your products must be NAFDAC registered. You must have a business a business registered. A lot of companies will not pay to individual businesses and things like that. So things around, individuals. So things like structuring your business is very important, depending on how you want to scale. And then, like I mentioned before, you must look at the market, the key considerations around your business opportunity. What creates business success? One is your effectiveness of production. So are you producing effectively? That's something you must understand well. Your route to market and distribution. That is very, very important. Distribution and logistics is a big part of what actually hinders business growth, because sometimes if you're not growing at a particular scale, you cannot distribute effectively. And if you're far from your end user, that might pose an issue with your ability to deliver. And then the last thing you must look at is the size of the market. Is the market big enough, and is it growing? Are there enough people, despite the competitive landscape, that would buy your product? And those things are very, very important. So if I take them one by one, just one being your production and efficiency. This is a very complex one, obviously, because it depends on what you're producing or how you're producing. But the key impact, and I guess this is where the whole idea of if you're importing your raw materials comes from, is that the biggest cost most businesses have in manufacturing is their cost of raw material. If your cost of raw material is, your primary raw materials, like your inputs, right? Most times, most people have to import, if not all or some aspect of their input. And that is very, very risky for us, where we have, dollar and naira, like a very, very risky currency that fluctuates too much, because when you imported at a particular time, the naira was one thing, and then when you imported at another time, the naira changes. So one, understanding and managing this cost of raw material is very, very important. I cannot say that there is a standard answer to every, to what this does, but how to do this. But sometimes what happens is that there will be a cost at which, if you buy the raw material at this price, you cannot push that cost onto the consumer and you cannot sell, right? So you have to just do that analysis. Okay, I'm buying my raw material right now at maybe 500 naira kg. How much will I make if it's 600 naira kg? How much can I increase it if it's 700 naira kg? At what price per kg will it go too high that my consumer will not pay? So if you do that analysis and you see, like, okay, what if dollar goes to 2,000 naira? Does that mean that it's something that makes my business still relevant? There's some ways you can just look at doing I don't want to get too complicated, but just analyzing, well, if the dollar goes up or my input costs go up by a particular amount, will I still be able to run this business? And this is very true, especially for very high volume businesses. So where your margins are very thin. If you're doing something like, for instance, for my business, we are in dried fruit. We're not a low margin business because obviously we are selling a premium product. So I can afford to increase my price a little bit more because customers have disposable income, but I'm not selling huge volumes. But if you're a volume business, margin becomes extremely important. And this is where even understanding the landscape of your production is, because you have to even know what margin are others making, to survive in business. If there others are making 20% and you are making 10%, that means you're not running your business efficiently. If others are making 20% and selling at the same price, but you are making 30% and selling at the same price, maybe you're doing something very well. So again, you have to understand the core inputs of your business. And for me, controlling your cost of raw material is the number one thing. That is sometimes not always in our control, because the market changes and the prices change. But you have to make sure that you are operating as efficiently as possible, you know, and trying to accommodate and keep your cost as low as possible, so that if the price of your raw material increases, you're still, you know, able to do business. And this is where importing is kind of risky for businesses, where, you know, you import at a particular time, and by the time you want to do your next import of raw material, the price has changed or the naira has devalued some more. This is something that is a big risk of the business. So for me, what I would advise people is that if you notice that you're importing a commodity that has that the price changes a lot, like let's say for us, we do coconuts, right? Sometimes the price of coconut changes depending on what season, what time of the year that is. It will be in my interest to buy as much coconut as possible when the price is low and produce and keep the product, because then I would actually be able to mitigate my risk a lot more, and I will not be, you know, need to take, the risk of the raw material completely going up and not making my business make sense. So things like that could help. If you understand the seasonality of your products, when commodity prices change, then it can impact your buying. Or you know, when it's low season and high season for your product sales, so that it impacts, you know, maybe how many staff you get when the season is high and how many staff you get when the season is low. Just things that help you understand how to produce more efficiently is very, very important. So that for me is, you know, something very, very key. I feel that a lot of us, even at the small scale of our manufacturing, we need to understand what it takes to get us more efficient in our production. You know, that is your input cost, your raw material cost, when and how you know, process your products, etc., and learning the most efficient ways to produce, so that you are not you know, running at a loss, but you are able to keep your price competitive as much as possible. The second thing I mentioned was distribution. Now, distribution is a big, big challenge for our products, for Nigeria in general, but also for manufacturers, because sometimes, obviously, getting distributors is very, very difficult, and the cost of logistics is very high. So for me, one thing I also go back and reference back to knowledge a lot, is that you have to understand how competitors are moving products, right? If your product is if your product is, let's say, something where a lot of distributors buy it, it would be in your interest to go and speak to distributors even before you started producing at scale, saying, okay, what would make you buy my product? Some of them would say price, some of them would say, if you get it to be here, incentives, etc. But just understanding how your products are moved to the market and get to the market is important. A lot of times we start our businesses, you know, being the one doing everything. We're producing, then when someone orders, we go and deliver. When somebody wants this, we do that. But when you try to grow, you realize that you cannot do all those things together. So you need to understand how those things are going to be done. And again, the cost of those things, how much does it cost you to move a carton of product from one place to another? That is information you can know before you start. So you know that your margins can cover it. Not when you start producing, you now realize that, oh, okay, I can produce at this price, but when you add transport, the business doesn't make sense, right? So those are things that you need to understand. Distributing your product is very important. I believe that, you know, even in the early days of your business, you should not even bother with marketing. You need to focus on distribution, because people cannot buy a product that they don't see or they can't get, right? So for me, even when we started our business, we didn't really even have a marketing team till like 7 years, because sales was our marketing, distribution was our marketing. We needed to get in front of customers. So for me, understanding how your product is going to get to the end consumer, who is going to send it, how many people in the chain do you need to send it to them? Can you give all of them a margin to make this business make sense? Those things are very important to know before you even start saying, okay, I want to scale up or I want to manufacture, because if you cannot account for all those costs, you are not going to be able to be competitive in the market. Or you find out that, I know some of you know this, some products, if you know, let's take water, for example. When you're doing pure water, after a certain point, you cannot even sell to another location because the cost of distribution completely erodes the margin. So those are things you need to really, really understand. selling and distribution is very, very important. And again, that's why I said, starting from the market backwards is always key to understand how to structure your business accordingly. The last thing is then the retail end or the final consumer, selling to them, etc. Again, when you produce things or you do things, of course, there's sometimes where we can produce for the market and we have to get the market to take our product, but it's very, very easy it's actually better to know what the consumer likes and what they are buying, so that you copy that and you give them what they want, so they have a higher likelihood of buying your product. There's nothing like buying a product or producing a product that, maybe in a package that consumers don't like anymore, or your package is not easy to open, or they can't use it for this and that. And then, it just becomes harder for you to sell the product to people because you did not get input from the consumer. So getting consumer input, and sometimes that consumer input is not necessarily even the end buyer. If you're on palm oil, for instance, I saw somebody here who is doing palm oil. I would believe your end consumer is probably your retailer or the distributor. What would they need to get your products, to take your products and start distributing it for you? Because palm oil is something everybody uses. Of course, quality matters, but it's a very common product. Now, the person who you want to sell to is actually the distributor who can give you that reach. So what would they need? What do they need to see? How does your product need to be packaged? All those things you need to ask, beforehand. So again, I'm anchoring this masterclass by saying that I'm putting the onus on a lot of us to go and seek knowledge first before we make a move. Or even if we've made one or two moves, stop and validate the moves we're making with knowledge, okay? So that is very important. And I said, like I mentioned, the key areas for manufacturing is your production efficiency, your distribution and selling, and then of course, your route, which is your route to market, and then obviously meeting consumer needs. Now, importing, whether you're importing or not, obviously importing adds a different risk to the product, like I mentioned, because of currency or global commodity price changes. But that's just a risk you have to learn how to manage. Of course, the easy answer for me would say, find a local distributor. But obviously, if we had local producers that were reliable and were giving us products at the volume we wanted and quality we wanted, we would not go to import. So I'm not going to say that that's something I'm sure most people have considered before they even look to importing. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about was, before I actually move over to the questions and any other comments others want to make, was sorry, just give me a second. Let me just look through my notes. Yeah, I think I've mentioned, yes, funding. I'm not going to talk about funding. So I'm not going to answer any questions of funding because obviously that is a very big elephant in the room. That is a problem we all face, right? So and I don't, if we start bringing that up, we can take this conversation to a million different directions. But for me, I'm assuming that some of us, all of us who are here and are starting, of course, we always need more money, but we have some ideas of how to get funding for our business. And then obviously the last thing I wanted to talk about was pricing and pricing competitively, right? We live in a country that people don't have a lot of disposable income. So you have to be very price sensitive, which means that, again, understanding pricing structures, how to be competitive, but make sure you're making money. As an entrepreneur who has been in business for 11 years, it has never worked out for me when I said, let me lose money on this thing to make money in the future. It's a very dangerous game to play. And most people don't want to pay more for things. So you have to understand that, when a customer tells you, this is how much I'm going to buy from you, and you know that customer has other options or they're set on that price, you need to figure out how to make money at that price. You don't say, okay, well, I'll take a loss today, then tomorrow I'll make. No, this is what manufacturing requires. It requires ruthless efficiency. It requires us to understand how to do things better and cheaper and to provide good quality for less, right? So because that's what our consumers will pay for. I am at the point where I'm exporting my products to the US, and you believe that the US market want to buy my product for less than what I'm selling in the Nigerian market. Obviously, the market is huge, so I stand to sell a lot lot more, but I cannot complain and say, oh, this is my cost of production. This is the biggest market in the world. They have options from everywhere. So if I want to sell to them, I have to take their price, go back and figure out how to make my products cheaper, better, to ensure that I'm able to tap into that large market. So pricing and understanding your cost structure is extremely, extremely important. So just to recap before I go into question and answer, because I see some questions which I'll start taking now. Like I said, I did not focus too much on regulatory requirements because I feel that information is out there. Instead, I focused a lot on research and knowledge, getting information from people within your sector, if not within your sector, in your territory, within your sector and other territories, understanding the key components such as your production efficiency, your route to market, selling and distribution, your pricing, and your end consumers' needs, and also the market opportunity, which is tied to research, understanding how big this market is, where the growth opportunities are, how you could differentiate yourself, or how you could do what others are doing, but better and cheaper to be able to gain market share. Those things are very, very important in your business, and these are the minimum that you must tick the boxes on to have a business that would not only be sustainable, but grow and scale. So with that, I think I have spoken enough. I hope that I've shared some general information that can be guided, that can guide a fair number of you in the chat. And I will then now start. I don't know, sorry, from LSETF, I don't know if you want to take the questions or if I should just take the questions myself, or how you want to approach that.
Oh, thank you so much, Affiong. I mean, it has really been a very insightful one, I must say. Very knowledgeable. I really gained a lot myself, so I can imagine how much the business owners too must have gained. I just would like to emphasize on some of the points that you've made, so that you know, a lot of people that probably join us would be able to pick from it. I love the fact that you mentioned it, that you just didn't meet yourself there. You started from, you know, that place, and then you moved gradually, and it's really, really interesting to hear that it wasn't magic. It took process, and I really love that. I mean, Affiong mentioned that she started from home before she gradually started to have her own space and all. And thank you for the accolade to LSETF. Although we're doing our job, and we love to put smiles on entrepreneurs and business owners' faces, and we appreciate you a lot because you're doing a whole lot of impactful things out there. I love the fact that you mentioned that business owners should leverage on other non-competing organizations to learn from. This is a very valid point that I think a lot of business owners here should really, really pick on and work on. It's not about, you know, you putting out a competition there, like Affiong has said. It's about you even leveraging on that competition and learning from that competitor to even get your own business up there too. And then you also mentioned that not what you do with knowledge. In fact, I had to really, you know, put that quote and unquote somewhere. And I intend to really hold you to that word. I really love it when you said not what you do with knowledge, but what you do not do with knowledge. So it's not just about you being on sessions. It's about you harnessing all that you have learned in those sessions and making good use of it for your businesses. And then you also mentioned risk mitigation from harnessing all of the knowledge that business owners can gain. And then Affiong also mentioned cost production. I mean, and learning on how to the lining, like how you put in your pricing from the production down to the retailer and everything. And then understanding the margin of the distribution network and how you can also structure your business. I really, really grabbed a lot. So if I can grab this much, I can imagine how much you all would also have grabbed. I mean, this is someone with wealth of knowledge, someone who started it, and she's here to share our wealth of knowledge and our expertise with us. So thank you very much once again, Affiong. And for our participants, I'd say please put your questions in the chat box. I see a lot of questions, in the Q&A box, because I see a lot of questions here on the chat box. This is meant for chat box, but I would take those questions. Affiong, I would take the questions for you to answer them, please. Thank you. So I'm trying to go through them, although I would have really, really loved for everyone to please put it in the question Q&A box. Please, if I do not take your question, know that it's because it's not in the Q&A box. I would really love those that have put their questions in the chat box to please make use of the Q&A box. The Q&A box is just right on the screen. Just click on it and put your question there, and then Affiong would be able to take your question. Thank you very much, everyone. So here we go. DK Oliga says you're correct about buying early before price of those production goes up, but some of these raw materials has a shelf life and might be difficult to buy early to save costs. Assuming plantain chips production is what you're into, do you want to enlighten him on this conversation?
That's a very, very true point. And I think that if you're looking at, let's say, doing plantain chips or a product like this, there's a seasonality. I know that in rainy season, correct me if I'm wrong, plantain is very expensive. So there you would be looking at, if you want to, and I know somebody who actually tried to research, using research as my example, to go into plantain chips, and he realized that for 6 months out of the year, you don't make money. So he didn't need to buy machines and everything to do that. He was able to leverage what the market says about the chips, when they sell, volumes, blah, 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 and realize that he would have to get a line that could either produce another product. So in that time, he's not losing money and his machines are all idle. Or you realize that if you cannot make enough money during 6 months, to use your machines and assets efficiently, then it's not a business that you should do, right? So you just have to be cutthroat about that. For in my industry, there are countries where they only dry mango, so they buy all these dryers. And mango, as most of you know, is a has a very short harvest period of 3 months. So for 3 months of the year, they produce only mango, they produce as much as they can, and for the rest of the year, they're not really doing much. For some of those businesses, they can actually make money doing that because their market is big enough and they sell the dried mango throughout the year. For some people, they have to add another line. They have to be doing something else to make the whole business formidable. So for me, that's what I would advise, that if you know that, okay, you cannot, for a particular time, you cannot sell or produce your product competitively because commodity price is too high, you may think of, well, what else could I add in that time to that uses either the same machines, or maybe it's another, maybe I'm packaging something else just to make sure that I'm still earning an income and I'm not, like, my machines and my assets are not lying fallow. So that's one way to do it. Or you realize that if it's too difficult for me to make money reasonably throughout the whole year, then it's not a business I should do. So that is, again, what getting information would help with. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very, very much, Affiong. Weighing all that is involved before making your decision. Thank you. And then for me, Ale Bajo, is asking a question for you. Says, how do you assess national distributors that's locating them? And because this has been a struggle for most SMEs.
Yes, so like I said, I can't answer that question it's different for every business, right? I can't tell you, I don't know how, people selling chin-chin or doing palm oil or doing something get national distributors. The one thing you would have to understand is, like I said, if you walk backwards, you would know from a product in the store, wherever the consumer is getting it, how is this product reaching them? you know, you need to understand that. So you need to know what people are currently doing. If you talk about national distributors, do you have the scale to sell to national distributors? Because if you can't even sell to national distributors, or if you cannot sell a particular volume, you cannot get national distributors. What I would advise people to do is, if you are starting out, and this is what I, you know, tell people just for retail, for instance, if you are starting out a product and you know that your distribution capacity is limited, maybe you can do it, or you have a car or something, but you cannot go everywhere, it's better to focus. So if I am producing something in maybe, you know, Agege or whatever, and I am there, and there's like 100 shops or 80 shops in Agege, it's better for me to only distribute within that location. What people try to do is spread themselves thin and say, okay, I'm going to one shop in VI called me, one shop here called me, one shop there called me, and you now have your products everywhere, and you realize you cannot keep going to service those stores, or collecting your money is now very expensive because you have to travel there and spend so much money to see if they'll pay you, etc. You focus your distribution. If there's one distributor that can help you get your products, you know, you focus on that one distributor. You don't try and go everywhere. It sounds like it makes sense because you have spread, but it actually is very inefficient, and it multiplies your cost. If you are in Agege and you can visit 40 stores in Agege yourself in a week, it's much better than you trying to spread yourself everywhere and you're not able to see those stores in the time. And then as you grow from there, you are able to now say, okay, where's the next place I can go to? Or maybe I can find a distributor that will focus on this area for me. So I would say start with focus, pick 1, 2, 3, talk to them, get them on board, and then sell through them. That would be something that may help. But yeah, looking for national distributors is a very difficult thing. I mean, you are not going. In fact, there's not even, for most products, there's not even a distributor that can distribute nationally for you. You know, sometimes distributors also come with their own challenges in terms of, you know, control over your retail. So you have to be very careful. But I would say rather focus by region, by geography, by neighborhood, and grow from there, because obviously you cannot be everywhere at one time.
Great, thank you. And then Vera Ade is saying, could you please explain selling backward?
Okay, so when I said selling backward, what I mean is starting from the market to the production. So sometimes basically that's assuming that you have a product that is already, not you, but the type of product you're producing is already in the market. So you want to understand as much as possible from the market down to the distribution, down to the production, how that process works so that you can apply it for yourself. Sometimes even when people want to produce products, I try to advise them to even sell that product, you know, before you go into production, so that you know whether it can sell or not. You know, some people want to go into maybe cassava production, garri production. Before you go into garri production, if you could actually have packaged garri and sell it in the store or sell it to people, it would give you an idea of how, you know, you'd actually learn a lot from doing that. And it's a low cost way to understand the business before you get into manufacturing. So sometimes if that's possible, I would even advise you to do that before you produce. Like for us, before we started getting into large scale production of fruit, we used to actually buy fruit and we would package it and sell, because we had to build a market and know whether consumers liked it or what they didn't like about it. So I would even assume that, but basically understanding your business from back to front, not producing first and then figuring out how to sell, but knowing how it's sold and what it's sold at, and figuring out how to produce to meet that market standard is a better approach.
Awesome. Okay, so we have Francis Ojile, and Francis is saying a client of his who is impressed with what he does, gave him ₦1 million so he can invest in his spices business to get necessary certification and production. But he'd like you to advise on what step to take and what to do.
He gave me $1 million. Okay, so that's very difficult because I don't know where you are in the business. So That's a very difficult. I don't like giving general advice because I don't have the detail. But anyways, let me try as much as possible to be helpful. If I had ₦1 million, or if I have if I were given ₦1 million to do anything in my business, it would be to do the thing that would get me sales. So I want to sell as much as possible. Selling is important. I know we have to invest in all sorts to make a sale, but as much as possible, invest that money in selling, in getting traction and getting customers. That's the way you can attract more money, because you've proven that you can sell. And that's also the way you understand the market. So if I got ₦1 million and I could produce spices, would I invest it in doing a NAFDAC or doing bottles and blowing my bottles and doing a mold for the packaging? I may just pack bulk and sell bulk to people, because if there's a demand for bulk and I can sell bulk, which costs me less to process or less to package and sell, it would give me income and revenue much quicker, and it would happen in a shorter time. And by the way, I would not need NAFDAC, because you would need NAFDAC because you're going to sell in stores. If I'm selling bulk to bulk, I mean, it's like you do need NAFDAC, but it's not it's necessary. I don't want to lead people astray, but obviously, if you want to sell in stores, you must get an NAFDAC. Whereas if you're selling bulk B2B to a customer, they may accept you to sell to them while you're in process of getting it. So I would focus on what can I do with that money to turn over sales. Okay, I had a mentee of mine who got a grant, and she does honey. And she asked me, well, she won ₦1 million. What should she do with the ₦1 million? I sent her back to calculate what would this ₦1 million buy you in terms of honey, raw honey, packaging material, boxes, etc., across all your lines. Put the money in the one that would give you the most sales. And she was actually going to go into her bottled honey, which is more premium, but takes a longer time to sell. But by the time she did the math and the numbers, she was able to realize that she could sell more of her sachet honey, and that's where she invested the money, and she exactly knew how much turnover she was going to get. And I told her that's what you put the money in, right? She wanted to also she was even thinking of, oh, should I invest in more beekeeping houses and stuff? I said, no. You want to sell more. That's the most important part. You're a small business, you're a growing business, you need to sell. So don't invest in a new packing line. Don't invest in anything. Invest in what gives you more sales. And when she did that analysis, she knew exactly what to sell, and it made sense. So it was actually a very, very proud moment for me, because I was very happy to see that she used information that she had already to take the right decision. So yes, that's what I would advise you to do. Figure out where can you put this money that will give you maximum sales, and that's what you should do.
Thank you very much. That's a very great one. Knowing exactly what to invest in, and understanding that what would give you money is the best investment. So I guess that answers your question. So we move on to the next question. Please, Ma, could you explain how to get data for businesses outside the shore of this question?
Yeah, I did talk about that a lot. I said, I mean, there's no, there are several ways you can talk to people who are in business already, talk to people who are far ahead of you. Associations, like if you're in any association, you find that there are a lot of people, they have meetings, they discuss the business, they discuss challenges. You go to the retail store and see what things are selling. You ask the store people there, oh, which one is selling well? Which one do customers like? There's several ways but you have to get, it's not going to be one place that just gives you all the information on your lap. You must always be seeking information. And I believe in persistence. There are things that I've asked people. In fact, I'll give you a funny story. When I started my business, I had been told that one of Aliko Dangote's subsidiaries was looking at doing a business I was thinking of starting. And I kept asking him, and I was actually Alhaji Kaita Dangote. I just emailed him. I never knew I didn't know him. I never met him before. I still didn't meet him, but I just kept emailing and asking questions, and he was answering me till the point where he said, okay, I think you're trying to now compete with my business. So he stopped giving me information. But I say that to say that, there's no harm in trying. You can ask people, you can continue pushing, and you'll get the information. So I never give anybody a pass by saying, oh, information is hard to get. You can get it. You just need to look for it and work and ask people, and you share your ideas and people will start connecting you. That's another thing that has happened to me all through my business. Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm talking to people, they can see how serious I am, and they connect me to people with the information that I need. So that's another way you leverage your networks to get the information you need.
Great one. Leveraging on information. You never run out of it. And the funny part is, the more you learn, the more you're able to, make good use of the learning, and you make good decisions. So thank you for that. And I think the same person splits the question. So there's another part of the question that says, for importation, how do you get importers and all association issued related with it? Yeah, I think she would want you to help understand the.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very determined. That's very much based on your own business. So you have to find out, you have to do your due diligence. You have to know who is a credible supplier and all of that. You have to talk to them. Like, we used to import a lot of machines from China. We made so many mistakes. Some machines, in fact, there's one machine I had to send back to China for them to fix, and they sent back to me, and it never worked. I was not doing proper due diligence. I thought I could just order these machines online. They were simple machines. So I would say you have to really, really be aware. Again, learning through others is the best way. Seeing somebody who has done something successfully and following what they've done is the best way to avoid any issues with importers.
Great. Okay, so Maria here is saying thank you to you, that she has learned a lot. And then Inkeru is saying, thank you for the presentation. Please, what products are you into? Please tell us.
Yeah, my products are dried fruit snacks.
Okay.
So somebody answered on my behalf. Thank you. Thank you, Vera.
Okay. So there we go. Okay, what will you advise a food processor on how to create awareness or sell their product who is yet to get NAFDAC accreditation? So I think this person is asking, how would I do the awareness without the NAFDAC accreditation?
Like I mentioned, I think that you should first find a market who will take your product as is before you get NAFDAC. So you don't need, maybe your awareness needs to be one-on-one or in your office groups or church groups or something where people would taste your product, like it, and start buying, and then it grows from there. I would say that you first focus on your lowest hanging fruit in terms of a buyer, and try to grow those people as much as possible. If you find that, let's say you're doing plantain chips, I know a lot of people would sell after church. After church is a good time. People love buying snacks. You go there with as many as possible and try to keep selling more and more and more. And then you get people to order, even during the week, or you go to offices and things of that nature. Your awareness does not have to be mass scale. It doesn't have to be on Instagram. It doesn't have to be on all these things. It can be you really focusing on the customer that likes your product and finding more of them. And then naturally, as you grow and get more market and buyers, then you can say, okay, it now makes sense to invest in NAFDAC to get into stores and the like. Or like I mentioned, you go to a bulk buyer, somebody who may be wanting to use it in bulk. Instead of focusing on NAFDAC, you focus on finding those buyers and selling to them directly.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, I have Sunday here, and Sunday is saying, please, business loan good for one to get if one is not buoyant at the time. Okay, so Sunday would like your insight on getting loan for his business. Do you think is advisable?
Yeah, they can get a loan from LSETF. That's a great loan.
Thank you very
And
much
I'm
for
not
that.
just saying that it is. It's a very, 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 I mean, I don't think you can find a loan that is as common as LSETF. So it's a great one for businesses.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so please,
Yeah.
you can actually check our website, www.lsetf.ng, and see the loan that you can apply for as an SME. And then you can also see the documentations necessary for you to apply. Thank you. Okay, so for me is saying that how do you get, okay, we've answered this. And I have ED saying, hello, Affiong. In the food processing industry, sourcing raw material can be a huge challenge. Would you advise to backward integrate and farm your raw food input or source from open market? How do you think is the best way to source from open market if that's it?
That is a very, very good question, and actually one that we are going through at the moment. So, no, I would not advise you to farm in the beginning because farming is equally risky. And people think farming is cheap. It's actually very expensive, very, very expensive to go into farming. So I would say that there is a time in your business where you can gain a lot from backward integrating down to the farm. And that comes when one, you're struggling to find raw material, but you also have a lot of good investment that you can put into that. I would not say you should be. So my grandmother, this is one of the things my grandmother always used to tell my mom, don't fight a war on too many fronts, okay? So you cannot, focus your energy on too many challenges. You're focusing on production, you're focusing on market, you're focusing on farming. It's a recipe for failure, actually. So what I would advise is that between even the way to do it is to get better at, get more efficient at buying cheaper. So you start buying from the open market. Let's say fruit, for instance, if you go to mile 12, the cost of fruit as mile 12 is what it is. Let's say you're doing juice, you buy from mile 12, buy from mile 12. Then your volume starts increasing. Then you can go to Benin and say, okay, is there a farmer there that can send me a truckload because it's going to be maybe 30% cheaper than buying from mile 12. Then as you grow, you might even say, okay, is there a farmer who would farm for me and a contract farm for me, and I would take off what you farm for me. We've agreed on a price which is cheaper than even your farm gate price. That's how you do it. Only when you exhaust all those efficiencies do you say, okay, let me farm. But to say that you want to go into farming while you're facing other business challenges, I would not advise at all. But it's a very, very good question. I think you have to take it methodically. And like for us as a business, we are going to start our own farms, but not till we are sure that, number one, we've actually built all the expertise to go into farming, because it's a very different skill set than production. And two, not when it's going to distract us from running our core business.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so I have Vera here. I think we've answered one of the questions here, but there she has another one that says, can you be kind enough to explain on how you were able to get into stores? What's the process as we are planning to reach out to various stores to stock our products? Thank you.
Yes, I got into stores the way most people get into stores. You walk in there and you take samples and you show them and you go back and you go back and you go back. So yes, I used to do this all the time. So there is no shortcut to it. If you're lucky, you have a distributor that goes into stores that has a network of stores for you. That would be good and that might be better. But for the most part, it's very much, your relationship. You go there, they'll tell you to come back, you come back, they'll give you this and that feedback, you take it. It's just a game of persistence and not giving up. Yeah. And of course, you have to have NAFDAC, you have to have a business for most stores. You have to be registered as a company. There are just some requirements as well. They may ask you, they might dictate payment terms to you, or we only pay you 30 days after 40 days. Some may pay you upfront, some may tell you they only do sales on return. So only when you sell, if you don't sell, they won't pay you till your stock finishes, all that stuff. But yeah, it's just a game of going in there and continuing to, keep trying if that's what you want to pursue.
So never say never. Walk in, shoot your shot, and be positive. Thank you very much, Afia. And then I have ED that says, how can you avoid selling at loss when you are into perishable business?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. I think again, knowing your market is very important. That's the one way to mitigate it, right? You don't just, again, getting customers, getting market first. Like, for instance, we have a lot of aggregators who bring us fresh banana, fresh pineapple. A lot of them, they need to aggregate demand first before they go to the farms and buy fruit, because otherwise if they bought it and we're waiting for people to order it, they would lose money. So you have to be sure that you know who the off-takers are before you actually go into perishable sales.
Awesome. Yes, Korede Alonge is saying, what do you know? When do you know that your business product is mature to start exporting? And he's also saying, which do you prefer from an entrepreneurial standpoint, or most profitable considering various bottleneck, national distribution, or exporting? And then he has another question, but I think you should answer this first. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, so technically you can export at any time. I mean, I don't really want to go into the export game because it's also quite complicated. Exporting is not a complicated, it has different levels of scale. So if I'm exporting, let's say I'm doing fish and one African store buys from me, they might even pay me in Naira and I'll deliver my product somewhere in Lagos and they would send it abroad themselves. That's an export, but it didn't really cost me, I didn't really have to figure out any distribution or anything like that. There's exporting where you're exporting to a warehouse and you're storing your products waiting for people to buy. There's different levels. So at all levels, you just need to know the cost associated with those levels. There's some exports where you actually cannot do it if you don't have container loads, right? There's some people who will not buy less than a container load from you. So it's not just about saying, do I like it or do I not like it? It's more like, what can my business do at this time? If I have the capacity to export at a container load, then I have to say, okay, how much money would I make exporting? Does it open up a new market for me? Am I making less or more margin? What are the risks? Will they return my product? There are other considerations to take, but there is not one or the other. You kind of build on both. You can start with local sales, and as your capacity increases, you export the rest. Or you may just start and forget local sales and say, I'm going to just make my product for export. And then you figure out what scale do you need to start to be able to export? Who are the buyers over there? That's another thing that's very tricky with international sales, getting buyers and commitments and things of that nature. So it's a very calculated decision to make. I don't just say, oh, I like one or the other. Sometimes you even make less margin selling export, but you trade off margin for volume, and you say, okay, I'm earning in dollars, so at least I'm holding my money in a currency that will not give me a depreciative risk. Like now, I hear the Naira is at 840 today or something like that, and I exported things thinking the Naira was 950. So I have now to bear that risk, right? Because that's now something that has changed. So it all depends, but I would say, again, it's information. You have to know exactly what it costs. Some people think like, oh, I will just export and my products will end up in a US supermarket or something like that. No. The route to market to export is very, very complicated, and one needs to understand it very well.
Okay, thank you so much. Korede's second question is saying, how do you juggle being an athlete, entrepreneur, and a mother? Oh my God, that's like saying 3 in 1. And then he says, I admire how well you play each role, and would love to say hi to you. Well done. Okay, he's been shy all this while. This is an opportunity for him to say exactly how he feels about your person. So well done, Affiong.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, I am. I'm a very hardworking person, so I don't. I definitely push myself a lot. I work very, very hard. I don't. I don't try to underplay that. But I'm also blessed. I have help. I have good people. I have a supporting family who give me the space to do some of these things. I have a very good community. I have the best running community. I'm part of a good running community in Lagos, so that really encourages me. I just feel very lucky and fortunate. So I'm really happy about that. So I see it as an opportunity to just extend the traits that are inherent in me. I am a hard worker. I like to do hard things. I challenge myself. I don't run away from taking risks, things like that. So that's why I then am able to do sport, etc. And of course, as a family, I'm very lucky. I have 2 children. I am very, very I'm very happy that I'm still able to do the things I love, but also, be a mother because of the help I have. So that's how I juggle it all. But it's tough sometimes. I get very tired, but it's exciting.
Pretty excited, I must say. Yeah, being able to do all of these and then you're still looking this beautiful. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, but like you said, having great support, that's it. And
yes.
Lucky you, I must say. Okay, so let's move on to ED. And ED is asking, when starting food processing business, could you expatiate what kind of risks to factor and to avoid?
Yes, I have talked about that too, so I won't go into too much detail, but I think the risks will come out of the research that you have done. If you're going into a business that's very saturated, for instance, you have to understand what the market risk is. If you're going to a business that has very risky, very, fluctuating commodities, you have to understand what the risk based on your input, your cost of raw materials is. It all depends on your business, but those risks you have to identify before. And that's why I started in my presentation and discussion a lot on what information do you even have before you're starting this business. You can't just start blind. It is really foolhardy. Sorry if I'm being very direct, but in this information age, you can't start something without knowing much about the business. It's inexcusable because you are setting yourself up for failure. So again, it's the information you've gone to get. Okay, who else is selling my product? Where am I selling? Where is this product doing well? We do this thing in Nigeria a lot. Oh, do you know how many millions of people are eating gari? So the market for gari is huge. But then when that's a very superficial and general way to look at a business. You cannot just say, oh, because we have a huge population, therefore there's a huge market for something, and therefore I can make money or make it, competitive enough. You have to distill and look further. Well, where are people eating this product more? Where are people making it and selling? Where, who is winning, who is not making money, who has shut down, who is growing? There's just a lot. So you have to understand those risks, that they should come to you as you're learning about the industry, not you go and then you start figuring out, oh, I didn't know that, to sell gari, you need this. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. And then before you know it, you've backed yourself up into a corner where you cannot get out of. So I would say that is on you to actually uncover in your information search and market research.
Okay, so you hear it, do your market research, and then you get a lot of answers that you can unearth. Thank you very much. So Joshua say that his name is Joshua. He's asking how can he expand his painting and decorating business? He's actually into painting production.
Like making paint or artist?
Yeah, I think he makes paint, and at the same time he's into art making, like decoration kind of. Yeah.
I mean, I would not pretend like I know a lot about that industry. I mean, you only hear of the big guys, so I don't know how you compete, but I would say that maybe finding out about your customers, why they bought, what made them buy, and maybe looking for more people like that to sell to is probably the best way to go, because you're in an industry with a lot of big players. So I don't know how you compare, but you have to just find your own kind of a differentiator and push on that.
Okay, thanks for that as well. I mean, that could help. And then to answer your second question on assessing a loan has been a big issue for you. Like I said, you can check on LSETF website and see the kind of loans that are available for you. But then if you also need loans that are above our own maximum loan, you can also check out other government agencies that are giving out loan, such as BOI and other ones that you can make applications to this agencies. You can research on all of this and get more information on fundings that you can use that you can leverage on for your access to fund for your business. Yeah, thank you very much. And I have Amemetu that says, for dry fruit, please, I'd like you to help me with explaining the minimum water required for sales or exporting.
I'm not going to answer that question because it's online, so you can get it online. No, not because I know because it's a secret, but because you can actually, I want to make the point that you can actually find this information online. It is, that every country has a minimum standard, or even the food and international food organizations have, processing guidelines for dried fruit, and they tell you what the moisture content is and the like. And also it depends on the customer. Some customers would dictate what they want, but just to prove that you can find this information online, I will charge you to go and look for it online.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so Silva Wanchuku says, do you fabricate your machines locally? I think you probably joined late because Affiong has mentioned severally that she inputs some of our machines. Yeah, so I'm sure you joined in a little bit late. Okay, so that answers your question. But then she's asking, what advice would you give about sourcing for the productions? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, I think you need to, I would say sometimes finding local fabricators is actually better than importing, depending on the specialization, because at least they can fix it for you and they understand how it's made. It depends on your industry, it depends on, where others in the market are getting it from. You found some people who have been doing machines for Nigeria, maybe in China, Vietnam, etc. If they've been doing a particular machine, they've probably gotten better at doing it for our market. So you find them out and you buy from them. But it kind of all depends. Again, machines are very, very tricky, because if you invest in the wrong capacity machine or size machine, it is very hard to become efficient from that. So that one requires a lot of work, a lot of just getting information from several sources before you decide on what to do.
All right, thank you very much. So DK is asking that you mentioned earlier that one who wants to get into any business must have made thorough research on everything the business entails, such as markets and sourcing. So for a beginner, do you advise he or she does the information gathering and research, or we outsource it, putting in mind that one may not have good understanding of the goals to carry out the research? Okay, so
no, I would never recommend you outsource it, because number one, you are sourcing it to people who are not the only time I would recommend you outsource that kind of research is if you are working with somebody who is in the industry, because then maybe if you paid them or you gave them you paid them for their experience, they would help give you the information in a quicker time. But I would not recommend that you just go to a research organization or one of these consultancies and tell them to do your business plan or to get you information, because it's very different getting service information versus information that you as a business owner need to use to take decisions. So the only time I would recommend outsourcing in quote is actually maybe paying an expert who has a lot of years of experience to come and give you information, because you can depend on that information. Obviously, you know their track record, you know that they've been through things, and you can avoid a lot of mistakes and save a lot of time using somebody who has done it and has been successful at it before.
Okay. Thank you. So an anonymous attendee is asking, can I know on, okay, what is going on? Oh, sorry, Sunday AC, I really do not understand this question. I don't know if you can resend it so that I can help you to read it out to Affiong and she can answer for you. Thank you. But let me move on to Deborah. Deborah is saying farming is both expensive and risky, meaning we require intentional, intensive government support and supervisory. How do we get government to be passionate and committed to sustainable farming? I guess that's like,
that's
huge.
I think I don't know, because I mean, it should be very obvious how important agriculture is to our economy and food security. So hopefully we have a new government. Let's see if they will show some greater commitment.
Okay, so that leads us to Ainde, could you please give pragmatic way of exporting? Who can we meet and what are the requirements?
Yeah, so there's no pragmatic way to export. Like I said, the requirements depend on who's your buyer. So when you have a buyer, they will tell you what they need. Some buyers don't need a certification. Some buyers need you to be organic certified and have the highest standards of certification. So it's not just pragmatic as what I would advise people to do is, like, for instance, export like for instance, they have a shop in Canada. So we deliver products to them here and then they export it for us. That's one way of exporting. It's opening our products to a newer market, but we don't have to deal with all the requirements and the like, because we don't, Canada, we're not, we don't have the scale to be in Canada the way we want to be. So we are exporting, but through local partners. Or for instance, a partner in England, Ade's Ventures, who buys our products, he buys it here as a local product, but he exports it. So again, don't complicate yourself. If you have people, if you can partner with people here who export, that's the easiest way to go. Otherwise, you find people who are exporting and you figure out what they need to make the export successful, and you have to meet those requirements. It's more determined by who is buying your product. That's how you know what you need to do.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. And I think I have Sylvia here that says that, can you throw more light on pricing? How do you ensure that you do not, that your price is not too high or too low?
Yeah, I mean, you have to benchmark your pricing. That's the only way to do it. I mean, you have to know what you cannot sell more than what the market is buying for. Otherwise, you reduce the number of people who are selling. So if you get the average of what people are selling for, if your margin can accept it, you might say, okay, let me cut down my price by 3 or 4% because it might incentivize people to buy more from me. Or if your price is too high, then you have to figure out why others are able to sell so low.
Yeah, weighing the differences. Thank you. Okay, so I have one here again that says that how do you mitigate against possible competition, especially people trying to copy your product?
I don't know that you can mitigate against that. I mean, it's very hard to I don't know. I don't think there's. I mean, the ways I think you mitigate against competition is through efficiency. It's actually not through the product itself. Because it's very hard for you to hide what your product is, how it's made. There's almost nothing new under the sun. It's how you get it to market, how you produce it. Those things that are not easily seen. That is how you actually maintain your prevent competition. Because if you're very good at something, very hard for people to copy it at the way you do it, then even though they try, they would not get the same result. So I would say that's probably your best bet.
Okay, so the very last question says, I must say I have actually missed a lot, but nevertheless, I'd really like you to give like a summary of all that has been said. Thank you very much, Marcel. There goes our summary. Thank you.
Are you going to give the summary or do I have to give the summary?
It's your floor.
I mean, I think we had a great discussion. I know that the video is going to be recorded and shared, so I'd actually encourage you to go back and watch it.
Yes.
So I mean, we've talked about a number of things, and I think if you're really interested in learning about how to structure your business for startup and understand what you need to know more to be able to be able to start producing and the like. Yeah, the conversation has been very, very good to drive that. So that's what I'll end with.
Yeah, thank you. So to really answer you, Malaya, I think you should just you would be getting linked to the YouTube. You can check out the YouTube page of LSETF and have a rewatch. And then whatever it is that you missed, you can then gain from that rewatch. Thank you very much. Okay, so there we go. No more question, but I'm just going to read this too. It's not a question, but Korede Alunga says that you guys are okay. Are you guys heavily invested on advertising? I got to learn about ReelFruit from a friend's Snapchat. I haven't tested the product, but the package design is a masterpiece. Shout out to the engineers and designs. Well done all. That's from Korede Alunga. So I won't say it's a question. I think it's a big shout out to what you're doing with ReelFruit there. Yeah. So Deborah is saying, thank you, Mrs. Affiong Williams. It looks like we should intentionally, unfortunately, unequivocally approach our government en masse to get the required intentional attention to actualize sustainable farming, which is in dire need at this time. Yeah, thank you, Deborah. You're right about this, I must say. I mean, Affiong, I'm sure you agree. Yeah, so Molayo is also saying a very big thank you to you. And with that thank you from Molayo, and it's a wrap up. Any last word from you, Afia? What do you have to tell our MSME ecosystem? What advice do you have for them? Thank you.
I would say that everybody's doing a good job trying. It's not easy to, solve a lot of problems, especially ones that are out of the control of the of individual entrepreneurs. I mean, I think Nigerian entrepreneurs are some of the most resilient and resourceful in entrepreneurs we have. I see around the world. I go around the world and I worked with people from different places, and I'm never impressed because I think that we work very hard in Nigeria. So, I think a lot of actors are doing the best we can. My plea always remains that we need the government to create a really strong enabling environment and one that can foster growth, because if people are growing and getting wealthier, then it's easier for us as businesses to sell our markets to people. And that's what most of us are looking for, not really handouts and the like. So I can't really say, oh, people must do X, Y, Z. I just appreciate that it's a very difficult macroeconomic, environment we're in at the moment. High inflation, high cost of everything. We must get through it, and we I guess be opportunistic that the government is looking at solving these problems so that we can have a very just stable economy for a while. Once we have a very stable economy for a number of years, I think we'll all be smiling and growing.
Thank you very, very much for that, Affiong Williams. It's been a very insightful session with you. I'm sure you can see the chat box buzzing with so many thank yous and so
Yeah.
many,
Thank you guys.
things in
Thank you
there.
all.
A lot of people have really gained insight from this masterclass, and I must really say thank you very, very much. And for our participants, I really appreciate your resilience, your the spirit, that resilient spirit that you have as a business owner. Like Affiong has said, it's really not an easy thing to run a business here in Nigeria as a whole. But then you guys have been doing it, and you've been putting in your best and putting in all that you can get as support, and you've just been forging ahead on it. So well done to you all, and a big clap for you all. But please do not forget this one from Affiong Williams that says, it is not what you do with knowledge, but what you do not do with the knowledge that you get. It's really a very, very deep saying, and I would really want you all to go back and, make use of everything that you have learned, because it's not about you being on this session, but it's about you making good use of everything that you've learned on this session. And at that point, I say thank you all for being on today's session. I look forward to seeing you on our next session. And I'm sure the people in the green economy space, recycling, are really going to find our session interesting. So you all should look out for the post on the date for the next session, and then we would be bringing you that session for those in that space, and a very interesting topic that you can also learn a lot from. But for today, thank you very much, Affiong. Do enjoy the rest of your day. And for the participant, thank you all very much for staying put. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next session that we're having. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.